Hey, today we're in my garage, and I'd be dressing a little more comfortably and more in martial arts attire, except it's cold in the garage, so I'm not. I'm going to go over some things, basics for any kind of martial art, any kind of contact thing where you have to have punching, kicking, striking many times. What you want to look at is your point of impact. Now, a lot of people look for your point of impact and they think where you're hitting. And in this case, it's going to be this heavy bag. But it's not just where you're hitting, it's what you're hitting with. There's 2 points of impact. There's the point on yourself, on your fist or palm or forearm or whatever you happen to be striking with, and there's the point that the impact is made on the target. Both of these are very important. If you are aiming and you don't hit the right target and you graze off of it, that strike can be completely useless. It might just open you up to get hurt. That's a bad thing. Heavy bag is really a great substitute if you don't have someone to work with for practicing your point of impact. In fact, sometimes it's better than having a human because, yeah, if you have a 100-pound heavy bag, most people weigh more than 100 pounds, at least if they're adults. But most people aren't as solid as this. Like, your weight is not distributed the same way as a heavy bag is. A heavy bag is actually going to be more dense in some ways. It's going to have more weight, like, in the small amount of space than a human body generally would, unless it's one really, really solid, big dude. So, heavy bag is a good thing to work with. When you're working on it, especially if you're doing punches, you want to make sure your nails aren't too long, because then you'll go into your own hand. That's bad. If you're wearing rings, jewelry, or something, I like to take them off, take my wedding ring off, put it in my pocket, whatever, so that you can really get, you don't hurt your hand with your ring or whatever. You don't hurt the ring. If you have a hat on, you don't want it like this, because if you get in there, you shouldn't be headbutting it, but if you are, maybe you want to be headbutting. You don't want the bill around that way. You want to be able to see what you're doing. Anyway, getting right to it. It's always good to wear protection for your hands when you're using a heavy bag. I'm not going to, so that you can see my hands better. But I've also worked on heavy bag for years and years, and my knuckles are pretty well calloused. So when you're working on a heavy bag, you want to make sure you know where you're striking, where your target is, and you want to make sure you know where on your hand you're going to hit. Now, with a vertical punch, like in several types of Kung Fu, which is one of the things that I prefer to do myself, you tend to aim to hit with your bottom 3 knuckles. That's not enough to know where the impact's going to go. You need to know where it's going to start and where it's going to end. So say I want to do my vertical fist punch. This part of the bag is a little bit weak at this point. Let's say I want to do a low one, and I come down here. I want to make sure that when I make that contact, my wrist is lined up. If I punch it wrong or I slide, it's real easy to jam up your wrist and hurt it. Now, yeah, this is a heavy bag. It's going to be different than if you're fighting a person, but the same principle applies. If you punch a person wrong, or you graze your arm or your wrist against their jawline, you can still mess yourself up. You don't want to hurt yourself in the process of trying to, defeat your opponent or defend yourself or whatever. Now, so you can get the general idea when it comes to punching. But one thing people don't think about enough is when it comes to kicking. You'll see people, and this is fine, to each their own, but you'll see people doing like roundhouse kicks and stuff, and they'll be kicking with the instep, which is the top part of your foot here where this bone is. That's not designed to take weight. It's not a weight-bearing part of your body. So if you hit wrong, if you're doing like a groin kick, that's fine if you make contact with the groin. Say you miss, say they block you, you can really hurt your foot that way. If you catch a knee or some other bone with the instep, you can break that. Your foot, not necessarily them. So it's something to think about. So when I do my front kicks, for example, I think about something in Krav Maga. They have their stances, which I've talked about in another video, where you're stepping on the ball of your foot, on your rear foot. So say I want to do a front kick with my rear leg and I shift. Now, I'm standing on the ball of my foot, so that's a weight-bearing part of my foot. So I'm going to kick with the ball of my foot. So it's going to have impact, and my foot is fine. Now, if you want to do a side kick, for example, Bruce Lee, famous for his side kicks. Something that people don't understand a lot of times, or aren't aware of. He didn't try to kick with his whole foot. He aimed with the heel. So everything was lined up. So if he was going to do one of his running ones, he's hitting with the heel. He's putting all that power, all that momentum, all that weight into that one small spot. But also your heel is a very strong weight-bearing part. You can stand on your heels for a while, just on your heels. You can rock back and forth. It's weight-bearing. Same thing to think about. There are some strikes in different parts where you can use the back part of your wrist and you can strike with it. But if you're not very skilled in that, you don't want to practice it on a heavy bag. That's not really a weight-bearing part of your body. It doesn't mean you can't use weight-bearing parts of your body when you're striking, like non-weight-bearing parts of your body. But it's something to definitely be very, very careful with. So always think about your points of impact. Think about where you're hitting and what you're hitting with, so that you can stay safe, both in training and in self-defense, and anything you're going to do, any kind of techniques with where you're striking. It's very important. And that's it for this segment.